Welcome to the Rochester, New Hampshire History Podcast, a monthly show that will shine a light on a piece of history that has been all but forgotten.
This episode, we will be looking at the James McDuffee Family Burial Ground, located on the intersection of Rochester Neck Road and Steele Road. What makes this small cemetery interesting is that among the old stones, there is an American Indian burial mound here. If you plan on visiting this burial ground, I recommend parking in the Gonic Trails parking lot on Rochester Neck Road. The graveyard is just a short walk from there. James McDuffee Family Burial Ground is well maintained. It is small, around 25 stone markers with granite posts connected by a chain surrounding it. Outside of the chain is what appears to be an old stone wall. Many of the stone markers had sunk into the ground, and no identifying names can be found on them. If you see any legible writing on the markers, it usually bears the last name of McDuffie. Because of its proximity to waste management, there is a lot of truck traffic around this small cemetery.
An American Revolutionary soldier is buried here. Ensign James McDuffie was born in 1726 and passed away in 1796. His site has a Daughters of the American Revolutionary marker on it. The stone marker that stands out the most is a headstone made of black marble. Waste Management is responsible for this marble marker, which is on a Native American Indian burial mound. This site is different than the other burials in this cemetery. Instead of being covered with dirt, it has miscellaneous rocks of different sizes covering it, indicating it is an Indian burial mound. The passing of the centuries has caused the mound to settle. The Native American's name was Willinowit. He was also known as Blind Will. The back of the stone marker reads, "Close personal friend to the McDuffie family." Blind Will was buried here after being murdered by raiding Mohawks. This burial occurred in 1677, and Blind Will's story is tragic and occurs before Rochester was even incorporated. The story involves Mohawk Indians from New York and an Indian fighter from Dover, New Hampshire, named Richard Waldron. In the spring of 1677, Blind Will had been sent out by Waldron with 7 other Indians to scout the Cocheco River. They were to learn if enemy Indians were in the area. While on their scouting mission, Blind Will and the other Indians were ambushed by Mohawk Indians from New York. Many of Blind Will's comrades were killed, while Blind Will himself was captured by the Mohawks. Blind Will was dragged away through the woods by the hair of his head. He was then tortured to death on a neck of land formed by the meeting of the Cocheco and Isinglass rivers. In the early records of Rochester, this place always had the name Blind Will's Neck. It was then shortened to the simple term, the Neck. Today, the road that this cemetery is on is called Rochester Neck Road, a name whose origins date back to 1677 and the horrific death of a Native American named Blind Will.
This ends the podcast. If you have any questions or comments, please email bobgriffinpodcast@gmail.com and come back next month for another episode of Rochester, New Hampshire History.